All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Think Bigger podcast. This Community Conversations episode, I am here in Florida with Jason Wenig of the Creative Workshop. This is an Allied Swallow. It looks like it's all finished up. When I was here last, this chassis wasn't even here, but I have seen this Aston. I believe this one just won at the previous event that it went to. Yeah, being in this facility, this is a man cave, barn, garage, automotive man cave. It gives you a lot of artsy vibes. It's industrial, but the wood and the space, I really love it. I really love it. So we've got 30s Ford, Maseratis, Fords, Jaguars, Astons. What an amazing shop. Chevys, Mustangs. And to see the diversity of chassis that they're building for Concours events, Amelia Pebble, everything from European to American, Italian. And to be able to see them being built or restored to the better than original, really, is pretty incredible.
Big Mike.
My friend.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Welcome to Creative Workshop.
Thank you. Hi, buddy.
This is Blue. I think you've met him. You have no choice, right? Okay, my pup. Oh, there we go. There's my boy. All right, my love. Mwah. Down you beast.
Jason, thank you for having us here in your Shangri-La of automotive customization. Would you classify this facility as a coach building workshop?
Well, first of all,
yes,
it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yes.
You're the man. And to have you
it.
in this cathedral
is
just wonderful. We are a lot of things, right?
Yes.
We wear a lot of hats. And I appreciate you leading with coach building because that's one of the things that very few people still do, that we do and know how to do.
Yes.
But I would consider us more traditional Concours restorers.
Okay.
So forensic restorers that really focus in on history and authenticity.
Yes.
And then from there, we do a lot of really cool stuff. Customization, hot rodding, coach building.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to get to, right? So my world, the niche of the car culture was very much modification, right? And then resto modification on my side of the world has become much more popularized. But in this case, Concours restoration is literally the art of getting it exactly as they did in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever, right? It is not about modifying or customizing. It's restoration down to a T, right? So your bolt head would be clocked to the same degree, etc. Yep. Is it the same type of people? If there's a certain breed of customer who's going to want one, what about, are they the same breed that want something custom?
So you literally just nailed it, right? And what I found that's kind of fascinating is that so the level of cars we build attracts a certain level of customer, right?
Absolutely.
And you would think that they would always go for the traditional, even like, let's just name them, like things like Duesenbergs and the big Ferraris of the world, which of course they do, right? But I have seen, without a doubt, in the past couple of years, a proliferation of customization at the highest level.
At the highest level.
And so you're absolutely correct. We have a good portion of our clientele that demand and want, and we deliver on exact. I mean, to the point you nailed it, and I can even go deeper. You couldn't even begin to imagine. I'm sure you would. But we have some remarkable custom projects here. They're from our biggest collectors.
Yes.
And that's a trend that I'm seeing. They want, and you know the answer to this. They love the original styling. They love the soul of the car, but they want the conveniences. And so you build in certain conveniences or a lot of conveniences so they can enjoy their car every single day.
Okay, so what's happening now is they're having you customize and integrate creature comforts as well, and amenities, but as well as visual adaptations or evolutions?
So there's a lot of people customize cars. Our style is to try to keep the vehicle as original looking as possible.
Okay.
The true soul of what attracted us to that car in the first place.
Okay.
And without most people knowing it, doing what's necessary to bring drivability, reliability, safety, and creature comforts into that platform.
So in the upbringing from you as a person, how did you end up deciding that I'm going to be able to not just get into this world, but I'm going to do well in this world?
Well, you don't go into it thinking, you hope that you're going to do well, but not thinking, because as you know, that this is a hard industry.
Yeah.
And it's certainly taken its toll.
Yes.
But you keep fighting, and you hopefully get to the other side. Oh, that makes it sound like there's another side. You get somewhere.
How many years have you been in business?
23.
23.
Yeah.
And when did you move into this facility?
That's it. So I came, so to connect the dots what you just asked me, I grew up as a traditional kid working on cars, right?
Okay.
So the whole idea was whatever I was building, better run by Friday night, because you were done with high school, you got to
Yes.
hit the cruise trip. And it just so happens now, looking back at life, I just happened to grow up next to one of the most prolific cruise trips, certainly on the East Coast,
Okay.
right? Which sounds funny, because we always equate cruise trips like California in the 50s.
Sure.
Well, Deer Park Avenue, Route 231 in New York, Long
Okay,
Island,
okay.
where we all were gearheads, was a major cruise ship. And I found articles written about that now in my age,
Yes.
looking back and saying, and you give me, that was my life. I never
Yes.
thought anything about it.
Sure.
But people now reflected upon that and said that was one of the most unbelievable cruise experiences anyway. So we would build cars,
Yeah.
and I was gifted, so I could build and fix anything, just naturally. My father taught me. We worked on
Okay.
Jaguars, all this fun stuff,
Okay.
but nothing serious. I went to traditional New York City, undergraduate, graduate, Wall Street, advertising, corporate America
Okay.
path, until a weird set of circumstances brought me back into the car world. And that's what got me into cars. And so that connective professionally got me back into cars. And so there is a sort of path that got me here, but it wasn't like I grew up in it. And so coming down here and figuring out that this is what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and taking that risk was a whole remarkable kind of a story, which you got the baseline, but ultimately that's what got me here. That's what led me to this. And there were some folks here. Mike, I just saw him walk by. My restoration manager,
Yeah.
was a person that was part of this entity. It was bankrupt. It was a barn. Where we're sitting with toilet bowls.
Okay.
That enlightened me to the highest level of the art form of the automobile. And when I came down here, I was expecting to do certain things with cars.
Sure.
But the first time I saw a true Concours car,
Yes.
I knew that was it.
Okay.
And I started fighting for it. And
What
that's what
was
it was
that car that hit you? What was that one?
Mike, was Forrest Alar's car Buick Roadmaster? Buick Roadmaster. So I walked in this facility. There was
This facility.
In this facility.
Yes.
So it's hard to understand this. It is hard to understand this. But where we're sitting right now, there was nothing except 2 cars here,
Okay.
and everything else behind me were pallet racks with thousands of rusty, broken parts and dead animals. And where we're sitting, there were fluorescent lamps dangling down with so much dirt and dust on them that the trails would come down. So when you'd walk, they would hit your head and they would break because all the dust was there.
Wow.
And there were land crabs crawling across the floor. So you hear, and there's no lighting, so it's just like flickering lights, and you hear clickling going across the floor. And then you turn whatever light you could find on, and there'd be a rat the size of a cat staring at you, and it doesn't run. And I'll tell you this personally, when you turn the lights on and a rat's staring you down and doesn't run, you know you are in trouble.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But there were 2 cars here. One was back for service, and one, when I called that customer, he said, if you touch my car, I'm calling the lawyers on you. So this is what I bought. But that car, Forrest's Buick,
Yes.
was stunning.
Created here in the midst of the environment
By
that
Mike.
you just described.
By Mike.
So amidst whatever allowed for that surrounding to exist, they were still producing something that affected you like
You know, like when you have a nephew and you see them at 1 year and they're this high, and
Yeah.
you come back 4 years later and then they're this tall, and you're like, I can't believe how tall you've gotten.
Sure.
But the parents don't really notice how tall they've grown, but they're seeing them grow. So yes, amongst this environment of a degrading company that was going into bankruptcy, where the clients were saying, if you touch my car, I'm going to sue you.
Yes.
Mike fought to produce beautiful things.
And one that was so beautiful that it prompted the launch in your mind of what we have today.
What would be curious is if knowing 20 years of us getting better at what we do, 20 years of perfecting our craft and raising the bar of what our expectations are,
Yes.
if I saw that car today, if I would feel the same way about it today as I did back then.
Have you ever delved into that? Like, do you know?
I don't know. I haven't seen the car in a long,
Fascinating.
long time.
Fascinating.
But I know it was beautiful, but from an untrained eye. From a guy
Yeah,
who's
right.
building hot rods
Right.
going down the strip
Right.
at 231,
Yeah.
that was the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen.
And then we jump all the way to an Aston, DB4 you just finished that one. When did it just win?
It went to Pebble Beach, was unveiled at Pebble Beach
Yes.
this past August,
Yes.
and it took a 3rd in class.
Okay, so being from California, Pebble has been the Concours to me, and then I've always heard of Amelia over here, and then there have been all these. I mean, there's now a fair amount of Concours d'Elegance events, right?
Quite a few.
But they've always still followed a familiar path.
Yes.
They have a certain type of feel to them, and then we get all the way to something. When in the car journey did you say, okay, let me go ahead and make my life more complicated by getting into the Concours d'Elegance world and wanting to create one?
Yeah, thanks for bringing on my PTSD, for especially knowing the timing that we're filming this, right?
Yes, yes.
So, 20 years doing this,
Yeah.
people knew what I was doing, and there was the CEO of, the owner of a very large automotive group, Warren Henry's in, had been trying to do something, and it's really a good story, okay? Was trying to do something, I'll explain what that means in a second, for a long time. But running a concours, starting a concours, very, very hard.
Sure.
And was unsuccessful. Through mutual contact, I was asked to come meet with him. I went down and met with him, and ironically, his comment to me was, I want to build a concours down here like Pebble Beach. What do you think about that? And I laughed, and he was like, what are you laughing at? Like, I'm serious. And I was like, it doesn't work like that. That doesn't work like that, right? And so, but we had a good relationship. And so I was able to have several meetings with him, explain what Pebble Beach was really. And again, he's been to Pebble Beach. He just never really engaged in the high-end collector car community. Okay. So he didn't really fully understand how involved it really is. So I explained what Pebble was and other concours. I explained where the trends are going, what I'm hearing from clients and customers. I explained it's the last thing in the world that we ever want to do is start another concours.
Right.
And by the last meeting, what I said to him when he said to me, he said, Jason, I really want to do this. And I understand everything we've spoken about. And I said, look, if we're going to do this, I think this is crazy.
Okay.
But it has to be done like this. And I spelled it out for him, because to me, this is the evolution of what everyone's looking for.
Okay.
And this also gets rid of all the things that I hear people complain about, or at least I am extremely sensitive to on the negative side.
Okay.
Things that have ruined my love affair of the automobile, and I want my love affair back. So if you allow me to be the judge, jury, and the executioner,
sure,
and craft this thing, I'm in.
Okay.
And I walked out the door.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to never hear from him again.
Sure.
And here we are now 4 years later.
Okay.
And we're 6 weeks away. And I'm trying not to jump out of my chair and run out the door screaming and crying right now.
You know, but here, amongst all of that, I think it's amazing because, I get to observe this from an automotive enthusiast, from just the most simple perspective ever, and appreciate building, restoration, resto modification, customization, coach building. So there's that whole side. And then over the years, in my niche and sub niche of the industry, to be able to modify cars, observe cars, build cars, and get on the covers of magazines and judge
I've seen
events.
your stuff. It's awesome.
And then now get all the way to, which was this untouchable kind of different tax bracket and tier of humanity, which is, quantifiably a very real thing. This is not for the faint of heart. The average person is not going to commission a coach-built car or a 1980, 60, 50, 30, anything to be restored if they're not ready to pay for that, right? So that's fair. And so I come from a very smaller tuner world, right? As it, capital T tuner is sort of the term that I've heard over the years. Yep. But it got to the point where, doing stuff with Discovery Network and, judging other events, and now being on the panel and a judge for a Concours d'Elegance event, the Motorcar Cavalcade. I've been able to see this evolution, and I'll stay always with my grassroots, and I love being able to cruise a street or to do a track event or to not be behind the wheel and simply appreciate and observe, whether judging them simultaneously or not, with a capital J, categorized
Gotta keep it
as a
serious.
judge. Yeah, but I really get to see the evolution of businesses and car modification, and I wonder to myself, and this is where the question comes for you, from learning from your father, and then wrenching on cars, finishing it by the weekend so you could go out, try to pick a female friend, go out with the guys, whatever it was, right?
Get into races.
Get into races. And then you evolved into, like you said, you went the corporate route. You did academics, Wall Street, etc., right? You did that type of work. Where do you find passion and the corporatization, the structure of academia and finance, and how do you balance them out to create something that you could still theoretically have fun while making a living?
I knew where you were going with this, sort of. And you touched upon a massive, massive Pandora's box, okay? We actually spoke a little bit about this before. It's a bit of a complicated dynamic, right? In that I know what it takes to pay for craftsmanship.
Yes.
And the people who work hard, and we all kill ourselves for these types of endeavors,
yes,
deserve what we get paid, okay? But that does not equate to the love affair of the automobile, right? So I could talk about Pintos as much as I could talk about Gremlins,
sure,
as I could talk about Interferrari 212s, right?
Okay.
Define passion and the love, right? And so being able to distance or separate money from cars is hard, but now going to Motorcar Cavalcade and things I've seen you say and even write, what you're picking up on is my attempt
Yes.
to allow people to love and appreciate cars and not worry about the money. Which of course, there are multi-million dollar cars on that show field.
Yes.
Great, wonderful, but there are also not.
Very much so.
And it's remarkable to see how people who might not be worried about the Concours Award or going to Pebble Beach
Yes.
react to a 1984 station wagon,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Because we all grew up in those things. And so we're challenging the concept of Concours d'Elegance, but we also are keeping it pure in the fact that it's not like we put any station wagon on the field.
Of course.
It's one that's got a lineage, it's got a history that we might be able to juxtapose against other cars of that era to show people what our grandparents got brought to and from school, what my parents got brought to from school, what I got brought to and from school,
Sure.
and what the future generation. So I might have been in a Woody station wagon. Modern kids in Miami are going in Uruses. It's still sort of a station wagon, or it's still sort of a utility vehicle.
Yeah.
But that's the concept. So charging and being respected for the hard work that we put in. With all due respect, we could charge more.
Of course.
But we have to balance between life and reality.
Sure.
But our real clients who really understand what we do understand that we don't stop thinking about this stuff.
Yes.
And we love working with people that respect and the car
Yes.
and respect the work. And they get so much out of it, so much more than we ever billed for. So there's a business side of it.
Yes.
There is the showing off part of it, but there's the soul of it. And I really kill myself to maintain the soul at Creative Workshop and maintain the soul at Motorcar Cavalcade.
I think that that's a very beautiful thing, and coming from a demographic and a piece of the automotive world, which is still to this day at some aforementioned concours is still ostracized. So you still do not have Japanese or JDM categories in almost every concours. You have, for example, at Pebble, you have the JAL, the Japanese Automotive Invitational.
That's brand new,
JI.
and that's almost a sponsored
Yeah,
thing up in
see,
that corner.
Just
Yeah.
on the corner.
Yeah.
So that's like where we're getting there, but it's still this ostracized, segment of an entire world, massive, deeply rooted history of cars. But motor car is one of the ones where that is not even.
We're breaking the
remotely-
molds.
Yeah, and you can have a very high dollar Japanese car next to another very high dollar Italian, European, American car, right? So how did you end up deciding that I'm not going to follow these different templates and I'm going to do it this way?
Yeah. There are two things, and these are actually things I spoke with Warren about as well when we're talking about if we're going to do this or not. One is I'm reflecting on myself personally.
Yeah.
I really like cars, and so I don't really care about the dollar figure, which of course is ironic from a Concours Pebble Beach store, right? But I don't care about the dollar figures, I care about the car. So I get excited when I see a Japanese car, a German car, an American car, a French car, a car from the 20s, the 30s, 40s. I find love in all that stuff.
Yes.
Like, I happen to be an antique car guy.
Yes.
I love to look at a car where there were no computers available. There's no precedent. These guys had to go into a barn and figure this shit out by themselves, hammering stuff out to try to understand. Oh my God, the car didn't break. You couldn't go and copy. They had to engineer it on pieces of paper.
Yes.
So when I see that, I see a level of ingenuity and craftsmanship that we don't even understand anymore, right? Okay. So how do I expose that feeling I get of this incredible palette of automobiles to everybody? So that's how I combine these. That's why I'm breaking the mold. But the other part of it is, and this is the funny part about it is, I can't tell you how many times I've heard a man that I work with, when I talk to them about an event I want to go to, them tell me, I can't or don't want to go to the event because my wife doesn't want to go. She hates these things.
Yes.
Or I've already done my allotment of 4 this year or 6 stuff.
Yes.
Or the girlfriend's lead on the stuff. That literally is potentially the seed in the water of what Motorcar Cavalcade was.
So the fusion of cars, culture, fashion, food,
It's
and
all
fun.
to create an environment for people to feel comfortable and have a blast. It's not even really about the car. It's about using the car to bring us together so we can all, well, for me, experience the art together.
No, and that's amazing because you have the premise that is used on this like most grandiose of stages, and it's really absolutely the identical premise for a Cars and Coffee.
Yes.
That is.
It's a fancy Cars and Coffee.
I mean, fair enough, but people come together for camaraderie, conversation, fun, and show off their cars, appreciate other people's cars. There really is no fundamental difference except that you have lights, cameras, and action, and you have other things that make that more fun.
Because it makes it more fun.
It makes it more fun.
And that goes into the fashion part of it. Like, well, wait a minute, if you're like a down-to-earth kind of guy, why are you making people dress up?
Sure.
There's something about what happens when you put your best on.
Yes, absolutely.
Our cars are bringing the best. We want you to bring your best, and everyone just feels a little special. It's our moment in time to be a little paparazzi-y with each other.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with it. I think anyone who kind of shies away from acknowledging that there is, like you mentioned it earlier, flat on the head, is that there is an amount of showing off. Anyone who tries to act like there isn't is silly. Now, is that the only reason?
We just want them to do it right. We want them to have fun doing it.
Yeah, if that's the only reason why you're there is only to win, I don't know how much fun you could possibly be having. Right. And then there are people that don't care at all. And it's okay to have whatever balance you want, but providing an environment for people, their spouses, families, people who are not car people, I think they would easily come to a motor car and become car people because of the energy they feel learning about how this particular Citroen was the first one to do X, Y, and Z, and how this Aston and this Italian car. And I just think that Motorcar has really been able to imbue and infuse all of the things that you've wanted it to, and now understanding from Long Island, New York, down to Florida, from corporate America, but starting off in the garage. This kind of history provides a really amazing backdrop for how you could make something like this work, and it's a testament to where you are now. The question is, what's next? I mean, 6 weeks, 4th Motorcar Cavalcade, but are you one of those people that still abides by what's the 5-year plan, what's the 10-year plan? Or are you taking it annually, or how do you do that?
Wow. It's a great question. I want peace.
Yes.
I want a great event that people love, that they look forward to coming to, they get excited about coming to.
Yes.
And perfecting that is potentially the endeavor. I'm not a BBD kind of guy, bigger and better deal. Okay, so more, throwing more. Like a great martini is a great martini. You don't need to perfect change a perfect martini. A perfect steak's a perfect steak. I don't need butter put on it. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
And so tweaking the edges to get the concept as, using the word perfect in our industry is insane. As beautiful as we possibly can is the endeavor, period.
And where are you? How do you feel you are to achieve that?
You're talking to a Pebble Beach restorer, nowhere, right? We got a million things to tighten.
But as you get there, right? As you get there, the process will become more streamlined. Is stress going to be there? Sure. Is time and planning and forethought and investing in all these types of things, but 4 years in, I think for a lot of people don't understand, that's barely going to scratch the surface of how to tighten the ship. And do you feel like you're starting to get there?
I work with some great people, and not enough people. So we're all wearing multiple hats.
Sure.
But the ones that we do care, and we work hard, and they're very skilled. And our evolution from day one to right now has not been linear, it's been parabolic. And so the efficiencies are in place. The things that stress me out right now are completely different than the things that were stressing me out 2 years ago.
I think that's a good thing.
It's incredibly
because
good.
if you were still having to worry about the same things,
like,
there's no
fix
growth.
it, dude.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so we're almost at the point right now where the event in itself is it's a pretty good, well-oiled machine. I can't believe I just said that out loud, and the gremlins are listening. And you know what's going to happen, but it's okay. I can handle anything at this point, right? And now it's a matter of, well, I mean, point blank, it's paying the bills. People think that these events make money. They don't.
Right.
The love is there.
Yes.
Everyone seems to love the event. We're getting really good in terms of streamlining process.
Yes.
But there's too many events out there.
Yeah.
And so between sponsors and ticketing and all that fun stuff, it's the event's going to be packed. It's going to be a blast. But the plan is how do we make this so that, and the beautiful thing about it is that I don't even feel that our underwriters not want, because they love the event and they're doing this to give back to the community, really.
Yeah.
They don't want to make a profit from this. Of course, it'd be nice if they did.
Sure.
They just want to break even, or just,
Sure.
just let it pay for itself.
Sure.
And so, in real business, say 10 years. In modern day business, maybe 5 years if you've got all the power behind you.
Sure.
We're at year 4, so we'll see where we're going.
Okay, so
I'd like that for all of the people that care to lower everyone's stress level.
Okay, so I have 2 questions that come to mind. Back to the cars, the fundamental part of it all. Is there a specific car of any type that you have yet to see at Motorcar that you would love for someone to bring?
So it's a good question. Now again, we're talking about a lexicon of 25,000 different variants of cars.
Anything.
So I can't just name all that
Sure.
stuff. But I am proud to say that we've had the earliest representations of automobiles in our car, and I think this year the earliest car we're going to see is maybe 1904 or something like that.
Okay.
So we've seen some really early stuff. We've seen some of the most modern hypercars the world has ever seen, shit that no one's even seen before,
Sure.
that they flew in on a plane, rolled it off the back of the plane, and they literally wouldn't even let the tires touch the ground and put it on a field. So I've seen almost the complete gamut from X A to Z, right?
What was that? The car you just mentioned?
It's the newest one?
The one that came off the plane?
Oh my goodness, what the hell
Was that 2 years ago or
It was like the Regera that Lamborghini just launched, or Koenigsegg just launched. I lose track of all these modern hypercars. I'm really sorry, I'm a classic car guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I can get that for you. Well,
Yeah.
but again, because every single year we get bombarded with all these
Right.
hyper and supercars,
Right.
and I can't keep track of them all, right? And so 50s and 60s cars, muscle cars, every make, model. But I mean, so I would love to see more vintage racing cars on the field.
Okay.
I think we're going to have some nice vintage Ferraris this year. I'd like to see more vintage Ferraris here. That's complicated because vintage Ferrari people can be very particular.
Okay.
I will only go to 3 events, and if it's not those 3 events, it's not worthy of my car. They're very worried about that stuff. So I'm trying to break those barriers down, and I think this year we are starting to see some of the cracks appear, which I'm very excited about. We've had our Duesenbergs. We have Duesenbergs coming back. We've had our Cords and our Auburns. They're coming back.
I mean, there's too many. There's so many. But what about here, as a workshop? Is there a car that you would love to be the man behind the restoration of?
No.
Too many?
No. First of all, the spectrum of automobiles that we've worked on this facility has been extraordinary.
Yes.
Okay. What I care about and care about alone is the relationship with the client.
Okay.
Period. I don't thirst for a particular car.
Okay.
I thirst for the relationship with the client that loves and respects the work that we do.
Yes.
That we're allowed to provide something that's going to make them cry, which I've had more clients cry when they see their cars than you could possibly imagine. At the moment, when we get to a point with cars, like for instance this Aston Martin, we will not let clients come to the facility. So they see it sometimes when it's freshly painted, which a shell of a car downstairs, in the paint booth, uncolor sanded.
Yeah, it's hard
to see
to really,
color, but they don't know, right?
Right.
Or
they're only seeing it when it is assembled,
rolled out of the trailer, and emotions flow.
I mean, just grown men, just tears.
And women, and hugging and kissing. You can't even begin. It's the greatest thing.
Love it.
And so, when you establish that type of respect, mutual respect, and passion and soul, I don't care what car it is.
Given even what we have here right now, right? We got Maseratis, Swallows, Astons, Jags, Corvettes. You got a 3D, scanned up van.
All hell's breaking loose.
Stingrays. I mean, as I was walking through, I mean, 30s Ford truck? What is that? 30? Is it in the 30s? The black one?
You know what? The funny thing is that car is owned by this client right over here.
Okay.
And they just rolled in here. I don't even know it's like a hot rod, right? It's just called in. I don't even know.
So I mean, so you got so much going on in here. But I mean, a little newer, 50s Camaros, 60s Camaros.
60s Camaros.
But I mean, it's the dichotomy of everything going on, full bodies off.
Yeah, this is a one of a kind, and that's a one of a kind, and We have another one of a kind of storage facility, and so we're dealing with the most rarest cars on the planet. I could tell you stories about these cars, except for that particular truck we just rolled in here.
So
you know
so same gentleman who owns both. That's amazing. So
lady.
I'm I really appreciate.
It's a female client, and it's a remarkable story.
Okay, awesome. I mean, we'll need a whole other episode to get into that.
You can only imagine.
And all the backdrops of, like you said, your relationship with your clients is what you care about the most. And I'm sure that we could spend time on each one of these cars.
Yes.
But that's the part that makes it cool. Yeah. It is not just a purchase order and an invoice, and we need to be done by. What's the history behind it? Why are we doing it? Why do they want us to do it over anyone else, right? Because it's not like they live close by, right? It's not
Some
like
of these clients visit us once a year.
And they're shipping their car from where?
Everywhere.
I mean, what's the farthest distance?
We've had several cars from South America and from Europe.
South America and Europe.
Yeah.
Of all the restoration
Colombia,
coach builders,
Ecuador, England,
ship it all the way over here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And some of these things come in boxes.
Okay, so you're getting pieces of the chassis,
Yeah.
and you're putting them all back together.
I mean, the yellow thing behind me, if you saw what the thing looked like when it came to us, you'd laugh.
What's the longest project you guys have had?
So, ironically, it's happening right now.
Okay.
So we have a couple of really monster custom projects going on right now,
okay,
which are a couple of years going, like 4 years going. But traditionally, for, believe it or not, standard restoration, we usually, for any type of a car, it's 2 years or less.
2 years or less?
2 years or less, yeah.
And is that par for the course in the restoration world? Is 2 years normal?
So complicated question, because it can come across, my answer can come across the wrong way.
Sure.
But there's too many, there's a lot of posers, and a lot of time directly relates to the inability, not to the actual time it takes.
Understood.
Whether they don't know how to train staff, can't find the right staff, they don't really actually know what they're doing, they think that restoration work is just painting, and they overpromised and all these things. And so the vast majority of timing in our world is from not being self-aware, right?
Understood.
And so understanding that, talking about what's normal gets complicated. If you know what you're doing, a fast restoration in this day and age is 1 year.
Yes.
Typical is about a year and a half. We tend to deal with complicated projects, so sometimes it takes you 6 months to find a part in 6 different languages, right? Sure. And so 1.5 to 2 years is kind of typical now. For us to be at 4 on a project, I'm uncomfortable with. But it's a monster, and when it's done, you'll know about it.
I look forward to it.
And it's time to get that thing done, and we're getting close. We're probably 4 months away from having that car done.
4 years, 4 months away from one of the most elaborate projects you've done.
The split window, which it's not even here right.
Okay, so we're 6 weeks away from the 4th Motorcar Cavalcade.
Yep.
So you talked about at the present moment you have 200 accepted vehicles.
Yes.
But let's talk growth. So year 1, how many people applied?
Year 1, I don't remember the exact number, but it was certainly not the number of people who applied right now.
Yeah.
So I think we might have had 100 cars on the field.
Yes.
And we probably were hunting for the last 10 to get to 100. I mean, that's very typical. Startup years are very hard.
Absolutely. And then now at year 4?
I'm not going to give you the exact number, but hundreds of applications, hundreds, and had to whittle it down to 200.
To 200.
Yeah.
So that's the golden number at the present moment.
And I don't think we're going above that.
Okay, so
we would have to expand the field to another area to go above 200. And it's going to get, if everybody shows up, which it's a concours, people show up. I'm talking about if all the 206 people we've accepted,
sure.
Plus I'm still adding. There's 3 or 4 cars that I know are coming in, maybe even today, that are monsters that we're going to accept.
Yes.
Right. We might be at 215.
Yes.
And through attrition, maybe 10 drop out just because they can't. Life. So we might end up with 200 will be the biggest field we've ever had. And I don't exactly know how we're going to fit them all, but we'll see.
For sure.
So it could be a really exciting, busy
The way that you've done it so far, the sprawl, the circular type, like you're doing the eagle eye view, the horseshoe, every car can get 360'd and they're all laid out together with doors and windows and glass. And I really love it. So this year I'm really looking forward to seeing the way you end up ultimately categorizing them and, whatever category, of course, and I end up getting to have the honor of studying and judging.
And talking about that with the judges, so even on that level, we started off with 20 judges. I'm at 55 judges this year. We have a massive group of people that span the gamut, so I can't wait to see who I'm going to mate you up with.
Yeah.
to expand.
Yeah,
that
it's
group of
been
love.
really amazing, the people I've met as fellow judges, you know, Oscar winners and actors and
Crazy
athletes.
stuff.
Incredible. So once again, thank you for having me and us here, and I look forward to being able to contribute, you know, as a judge and as an enthusiast, you know, in the space as a, you know, as a judge at the Motorcar Cavalcade.
Can't wait to share with you in a couple of weeks.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, man.